Yo, thought I'd film another video because after doing the last one, it actually felt quite cathartic going over things, posting it, and I can almost use these videos as a way to process my own thoughts and to have a record and a place where I can store them. And then hopefully, as an offset, some of the stuff I say, other people find useful, helpful. Also, I believe the camera quality is now a lot better. This is how it should have looked. I think the settings I was using were totally scuffed. But yeah, hopefully the lighting and stuff looks a little bit better and it actually looks like it's HD and not 480p. But anyway, the topic that I wanted to cover in this video is that you need to stop setting limitations on your own life. And what I mean by that, there is a common analogy, or there is a phenomenon called learned helplessness. And an analogy that people use to describe that is there's one known as the flea in a jar. And how the story goes, because I actually did look this up and I don't think it's true, but the story goes scientists were doing an experiment in which they got fleas and they put them all inside glass jars. Except once they put them in the jar, they put the lid on. And what the fleas would do is they would try and jump out the jar. They'd keep trying to jump out the jar over and over and over again. And eventually they would obviously realize that they're going to keep hitting the lid every time they try and escape. But after a while, what the scientists then did was remove the lid. And once the lid was gone, the fleas would continue trying to jump out of the jar, but they would only jump just under the height of where the lid originally was. Because after trying and trying and trying, they kept hitting the lid. Even once the lid was then removed, that was it. They couldn't break that coding that had basically set in them that the lid was there. And there is another analogy which is very similar, where apparently people tied elephants to like a large wooden pole. I think it might have been in a circus or some form of enclosure. And what they did was they tied the elephants there when they were babies. So when the elephants were little, they tied the elephants to the pole. And they only had to use like a certain size rope, a certain strength of rope to keep the elephants tied down. But as the elephants grew up, because they were so used to being tied down when they were younger and trying to get away and the rope holding them back, even as they grew big and strong and got older, the people holding them captive only had to use that same small length of rope, that same small strength of rope, because the elephants would only pull a certain amount. They would basically not think that they could get out, so they wouldn't even try. Even though once they were older, they could easily have just ripped the rope off the pole. They were far stronger than they were when they were little, but they had this learned helplessness. And what that phenomenon is basically the idea that if you are presented with a lack of control for a prolonged period of time, that you will eventually accept that as your reality, even if that lack of control then subsides or disappears. And the reason why I've said all that and brought this up is that I believe humans are very guilty of this. And the way in which that is so is, as you grow up, you hear things over and over and over again. Obviously, depending on what area you live in, the environment that you're brought up in, that obviously plays a huge role in how you develop as a person. But I know for sure, and I mean, if I'm honest, I'd say I'm very middle class as a person. You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever really struggled with like poverty and issues that a lot of other people face. But even then, I'd say for most middle class people, living in England like myself, when you're growing up in school and you say to like your parents or you say to your mates like, oh, I'm going to have a Lamborghini when I'm older. I'm going to have a Ferrari. I'm going to have a Lamborghini. Like, your parents will probably laugh. They'll be like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure thing. Your mates will be like, oh, shut up, mate. You know what I mean? And when it comes to setting yourself these high expectations, these high goals, people are basically going to tell you they are impossible. Not that, oh, it's highly unlikely. People will just straight up say, well, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? You got to be realistic, mate. You've got to be realistic. That's a common phrase that they'd probably use in that sense. And what this does is, as you're hearing this over and over and over again, it is programming your mind to believe that is reality. So subconsciously, you are going to start to think it is impossible. You're going to start doubting that belief that you actually originally had in yourself, that some would probably say childlike naivety, that you thought you could achieve something of that scale and of greatness. And you'd start to think, oh, what if they are right? What if it is impossible? Am I being delusional to think I can achieve that and get to where I want to go? And the big issue is, if that does start to become the case and you start to doubt yourself and think you're being delusional and think it is impossible, then it certainly is impossible. And that's the catch-22, where your probability of actually achieving that is drastically reduced if you don't believe you can do it. Whereas if you have true belief in something and conviction that you can make it happen, you can achieve it, you can get to where you want to go, what you say you are going to back and you're going to make it work no matter what, you are going to have statistically a higher probability of achieving that. And one thing to consider is that every great invention, every incredible human design that we have ever come up with has been something that previously was deemed impossible. People used to say that setting a certain marathon time was impossible. No human is ever going to be able to run a marathon in that length of time. Then we did. People would never have believed humans could go to space quite a few years ago. Then we did. Everything. Radio. The man who invented the radio, I can't remember his name, but the guy who invented the radio, his friends and his colleagues basically tried to send him to a psychiatric hospital when he described to them that he believed he had come up with a way for people to communicate without having to talk to each other through waves in the air. What the fuck does that even mean? Like, I am mind blown every day by mate. We can just speak into a mobile phone. We can speak into this block, and someone on the other side of the world can hear what I'm saying in real time. How is that capturing my voice and making it come out of his block instantaneously? And to be honest, this technology is now considered rudimentary. That is considered like some basic technology now. Whereas that to me is still mind-blowing. I mean, if someone asked me how it works and could I figure out how to do that? No. Like, not a chance. And it took somebody had to think, I can make that work. I can come up with that and I can make that work. And think of the scale of impossibility that you would put that on. So when you say to someone, I'm going to make X amount of money, I'm going to achieve this physical feat, I'm going to lose this much weight in that amount of time, and they scoff at you, and you almost can just tell that they don't really believe that you're going to be able to do it. that has happened time and time again, and people have been proved wrong throughout human history. And you need to really sit down and consider that when you set yourself your goals going into the rest of this year and going into the future. Even if it seems far-fetched, and even yourself, if you write down a goal and you think, come on, mate, you're being a bit unrealistic here, just think for a second, are you only thinking that because of the programming that you faced from those around you, because of the disbelief and the distrust that others have put into you? And if that is the case, just think, even if you set yourself a goal and you don't quite get there, let's say you set yourself a goal and you don't reach it, worst case scenario, you're going to be closer to that goal at the end than you are now. And no matter what, that is a win. And that is better than the position you're in now. So you need to fuck the fear of failure in thinking, I'm not even going to set myself that goal because it's unrealistic. It's probably impossible for me to ever get there. So like, I'm not even going to set it. And then you set your expectations and you set your bar low. There's no point in setting the bar low. Like that whole phrase, you know, shoot for the stars and you'll land on the moon. It's true. It is true. People who have made insane progress in any aspect of their life have been those that have been striving for greatness. They have been trying to reach new heights that seemed so distant at the beginning. And then when you get towards the end and you're getting close to your goal, the more you work towards your goal, the more you start to believe you can achieve it, because you start to actualize things. So you set yourself your goal, and then let's say if it was weight loss, and you're very overweight, you need to lose, let's say you need to lose 50 pounds. Okay, you need to lose 50 pounds. At the beginning, that is going to seem so difficult, and it's going to seem like you've got so far to go until you get there. But once you start actualizing that and putting a plan into motion that helps you execute it and get there, and you lose that first 2 pounds, then that first 5 pounds, then you get to the 10 pounds, you start to think, hold on, if I've done things now that have enabled me to lose this first 10 pounds, if I just stay true and I just stay consistent and keep pushing on and keep pushing forward, you're going to lose the 50 pounds. And that changes your brain. It rewires you to all of a sudden think, hold on, it's possible. It's totally possible. And you can apply that to any aspect of your life. You can apply that to getting a better job. You can apply that to living somewhere that you dream of living. You can apply that to your relationships. You can apply it to anything. You just have to believe and take that first step. And I think that'll do it. Hopefully, I didn't just waffle on some crazy tangent and some of what I just said made some sense. Because if I'm honest, this is all totally improvised, same as the first video. Like, I don't have any notes here. There's nothing wrote down. And I'm just trying to piece my thoughts together as I go. And this is completely unedited because I thought, well, first off, I'm lazy. So I'm probably not going to go to the effort of trying to jump cut this when I breathe and if I stumble over my own words. But also, I thought it's quite cool. You know, it's a little bit personal, not much editing, no music in the background, no fancy effects or annotations so that you can see all these colorful words popping up as I speak. I'm just relying on some of you, and honestly, there will probably be very few people who have gotten to this point of the video. So if you've gotten to this point of the video, honestly, well done. I don't know how you put up with listening to me for that long, but most people's attention span, they probably got through the first 2 minutes and then they thought, oh, I've got to open TikTok on my phone at the same time. So I just thought, you know what, let's try and avoid the absolute brain melting algorithm style. And let's just go with raw, unedited, me and a microphone, monologuing. So yeah. that'll do it. And if I come up with anything else, I'll continue making videos because yeah, I quite enjoy this. And I'm about to go train some shoulders and arms at the gym. I'm amped up now. So yeah, set yourself goals, believe in them, actualize them, and don't let what others tell you is impossible impact your own personal belief in your own ability. Because if they think it's impossible, they're never gonna fucking get there. That's for sure. So don't let that fucking stop you. Let's get it. Catch you later.